and you're doing something that you care about, I didn't realize you could burn out from doing work you were passionate about.
Yes.
Right.
You know, but you absolutely can. I thought burnout was for like people who felt unfulfilled in life and like hated their jobs.
Where is the line? Like you were saying, the balance between hustle culture, soft life. And I do think, especially like millennials, we have extremes.
Right? When you ask yourself empowering questions, then you move forward, then you find solutions.
And it quickly can become a downward spiral, leading to burnout.
Yeah.
But I think so often we get so close to burnout and avoid it. So we think, I'm fine, I can do this.
When you put your sense of being first, what does your soul need, right? Because you have mind, body, and soul. And it's like, what does your soul need? What is your soul asking for you?
If we have a mindset of anything and we don't deal with it, it just shows itself another way in 6 months' time.
Yeah.
So even when we change our rhythms and our patterns, it just kind of creeps back in.
Welcome to the Magnify Conversations. My name's Ruth, and I'm the founder and CEO of Magnify.
And my name's Rachel, and I'm one of the hosts of this podcast.
Magnify is a global community and content platform focused on equipping women like you to grow in and impact your sphere of influence. We truly want to see you thrive in all areas of life and want to display what faith can look like at the centre of that too.
We started the conversations because we wanted to have real discussions about things that matter. Money, relationships, and work, all through the lens of faith and our relationship with God.
Ultimately, we know as multifaceted women, things are rarely one size fits all. So we speak with many different women who are from our community and hear their stories. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Magnify Conversations.
We were thrilled to have Tiwalola Ogunlesi join us for today's episode to speak about burnout, what leads to it, and if there's anything we can do to actively avoid it.
Tiwalola is a globally recognized and qualified life coach, speaker, author, podcast host, and founder of Confident and Killing It, a global community empowering women.
After sharing her journey with burnout, we chatted about the problem of fake it till you make it, why the burnout badge is worn with pride, and how we can build in rest as a rhythm.
Tiwa's mindset and outlook provided us with so much value, so let's get into this conversation.
Tiwa, thank you so much for being with us today. Today, we're going to be speaking about burnout and the realities of burnout on the mind and the body, and I guess maybe some of the mindsets that get us into a place where we are burnt out.
Yes.
I just think with the extremes of like hustle culture and soft life on different ends of the spectrum, where it's quite hard to know where to be in the middle of that. But we also want to care for our body and look after ourselves too. So we're really, really excited to speak about that. But I think we're going to start with some icebreakers.
Okay, so strap yourselves in, guys. So the first one, I'm going to go to Rachel first, okay? What is one of the best moments in your life where you have felt empowered?
There have been a few, but without a doubt, it was giving birth to my son.
Whoa.
Yes, because I'll give you the whistle-stop tour. He was born unintentionally at home. Yes,
wow.
so and my husband delivered him with, there was no medical care. My mum was there and my eldest daughter was there, but she was only 2 at the time. So everything was good and he was healthy, but honestly, it was kind of chaotic. Yeah. That moment of feeling like I'm birthing my child now and he's being born, he's actually going to be safe and he's in the house was honestly one of the most empowering moments of my life, definitely.
That is incredible.
Yeah, definitely.
That's incredible. My jaw is like on the floor right now. Wow. So, Tiwa,
we need another episode to unpack that, so let's leave it there.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Okay, Tiwa, what is one of the best books you've read for building confidence?
Ooh, okay. I have to say the one that initially kicked off my confidence journey, which is 15 Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. And I love it because he talks about how growth is intentional. Growth doesn't just come with age or just by existing. And I think a lot of us have that mindset that as we age, as we get older, we'll grow and we'll be more wiser, but not necessarily. You actually have to be intentional about it. So I would say that is the one that really kickstarted my journey. And then, of course, my book, Confident and Killing It, which is a practical guide to waking you up to the greatness inside of you and helping you overcome your fears and insecurities so that you can unlock your most confident self. So I would say if I can say 2 books.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's great. So, I think you just talked immediately about growth and it being intentional. And I love that because I think a lot of us, as life goes on, we think these attributes of wisdom are just going to come to us, or as we get older, more work comes to us and we just keep naturally taking on more. And that's why this particular topic, like burnout, it can easily happen to anyone because you just take on more. You want to go for a higher position, or you want to expand your network or things like that, and how naturally it can come about. And I know that you've had an experience where you've experienced burnout and the pressures that come with that. You know, can you talk to us about that? And
yeah, I think you're so right. The work actually never stops.
Right.
And I wish I could go back and tell my 25-year-old self that, because she was so keen and eager to be this incredible woman and do this and do that. But it's like, once you get started on that, the work actually never stops. So you have to create the time to rest, to slow down, to take care of yourself. And I feel like I've actually experienced burnout multiple times, which is kind of sad, but it's the reality of life, especially when you are purpose-driven and you're doing something that you care about. I didn't realize you could burn out from doing work you were passionate about.
Yes. Right.
You know, but you absolutely can. I thought burnout was for like people who felt unfulfilled in life and like hated their jobs.
Quite
but
the opposite.
actually, quite the opposite, right? You actually burn out because you're so passionate and you're so engaged and you're doing it. And sometimes you forget that you need to take a breather and, you know, come up for air. So I think in the beginning of my career, my burnout was definitely from having a scarcity mindset. You know, I quit my full-time job in December of 2019 to run Confident and Killing It full-time. It was 2020. I was like, 2020 is going to be my year. Everyone watch out. I was like, Tiwa coming through. And 2020 had plans of her own, which we all know. So, you know, there I am with only 3 months worth of savings, which is ending in March. And of course, lockdown happens in March. Getting cancellation emails left, right and center, rejection emails, my whole business pipeline out the window. And there I am. And so I had this mindset that I'm not gonna sink, I'm gonna swim. And that required me creating my own opportunities, putting myself out there, going the extra mile, especially when it was such a dark time in the world. I wanted to be a light. I was showing up for my community. This was my time to really stand in the gap for people. As a life coach, you know, I know how to navigate these situations. And so I just started saying yes to everyone and everything, and yes to every opportunity, because I was like, I don't know where my next month's money is gonna come from. So any opportunity that comes knocking, I just have to say yes and jump at it. And when you say yes to everything and everyone, you say no to yourself. You start to say no to your needs, no to your physical, emotional, spiritual needs. And then before you know it, you're burnt out because you've given, and you haven't filled your cup up. So that was like my first initial like experience with burnout. And then it was just kind of like, I realized like, this is not sustainable, you know? And so I often feel like in life, we go through this yo-yo of burnout. It's like you burn out, then you rest, then you go on a nice holiday, and then you come back.
Feel better for a couple of weeks,
you know? Eat, pray, love, do it all. And then you come back and back into the same cycle. And then you burn out again. And then just then you realize like, hang on a second, I need to change some structural systems here. This is not just a thing where a holiday is gonna fix, you know?
So when you were going through that burnout in 2020, that was your first kind of real experience of it. How did you recognize that that's what was happening? Did it take somebody to come and say to you, like, Tiwa, you're not yourself, you're not okay? Did you know yourself? Was it a crisis point? Like, what did it look like emotionally, mentally, and just practically? Where you started to go, yeah, this isn't about not loving what I do, but I am burning out. Like, what was kind of the point where you realized
First thing was with my emotions, I just felt numbness. I didn't feel, So with burnout, one of the signs is you either feel extreme emotion where you're really stressed and anxious and overwhelmed, or you feel the other end of the spectrum, which is just numbness and emptiness, not having emotions or feelings towards anyone or anything. And so it's like my work that I loved so much, it was just like, meh. Like life was just like meh. And that's how I realized, like, I'm usually a passionate person, but the fact that I feel nothing and a numbness towards this, then, you know, it's not okay. Second thing was I stopped taking care of my physical needs and taking care of myself. So in terms of my sleep, I would, you know, work till 2 a.m. I would wake up at, you know, 7, 8 a.m. and grab my laptop, work from my bed, and then it's like 2 p.m. and I realized I haven't drank water, I haven't got up to have a shower, and I just, went straight back into work, and realizing that I was neglecting my self-care, my physical needs, all in the name of work. I also started to feel resentment towards people I usually love hanging out with. And my friends and my family, I would be irritated by them. I wouldn't want to be around anyone. I didn't feel love for anyone or anything. And then the last thing was tasks that are usually quite easy often start to feel like a burden. So it's just like your everyday tasks, which, you just do with ease, all of a sudden everything feels heavy and tiresome, and it's just like there's like a brick on your shoulders. And that's when I began to realize, hey, something is not right here.
Was it you that picked up that all these areas were kind of unraveling, or did someone else tell you? Was it your, spiritual life? Like, did you start to sense that something was off?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm very self-aware, I've been working on my confidence since I was 21, so about 10 years ago, for 10 years now. And so I'm very aware of what high vibrational Tiwa looks like and what low vibrational Tiwa looks like. I'm very aware of that. So when I started to notice it, I think it really struck me with my partner, who was my boyfriend at the time. It was like, I know I love this man so much, but all of a sudden I'm like snappy and like really irritated, and all of a sudden my heart feels like it's blocked. It just felt like there was a block there, and I was like, something is not right. And I think you have to slow down before you begin to notice some of these things. With the physical stuff, I had headaches, I ignored all of that. Okay. My body was giving me the signs, but because you keep moving really fast, you don't have time. Yeah, you don't have time to acknowledge that. Yeah. But when it's somebody like your partner who you speak to every day, who you love, who like you're really invested in that relationship, and then all of a sudden you're acting cold towards them, and you want to give love, but it feels like there's no love to give, then I was like, no, I'm not something, red flag. And so I had to slow down. And then I did research. And I think that's the really important thing. When you don't feel right, instead of just saying, oh, something's wrong with me, oh, what's wrong with me, asking yourself, what need am I not meeting right now? Because if you ask yourself disempowering questions, you get disempowered answers, right? When you ask yourself empowering questions, then you move forward, then you find solutions. So I was like, okay, what need am I not meeting? I started researching signs of burnout, and I was like, okay, this is actually what I'm experiencing. So when I go through a low vibrational mood, I never just let myself sit in it. I always ask questions. I always seek to find out, okay, what's missing and what can I improve on?
So many questions are coming to my mind, because I'm just thinking about that person that thinks, I'm in this hustle mode, towel over their head, I'm at my laptop, no one can beat me, I'll be the next Steve Jobs if I just, where is the line? Like you were saying, the balance between hustle culture, soft life, and I do think, especially like millennials, we have extremes, right, of I don't want to work ever, and then I'm going to be the next Steve Jobs. Just give me 6 months. I'll log off for 6 months, and then you'll see me back and I'm a millionaire. Yeah. Where is the balance of knowing I'm working hard, but do you see, there's a boundary there? Yeah.
I feel like I've been low-key bamboozled by soft life, because everyone talks about soft life, but actually in reality, life is hard. Yes. And when we preach soft life, but then our expectation or our real experience is actually a lot harder than this image of soft life people are experiencing, it creates a huge amount of disillusionment and, frustration. Because tell me why I thought that by the third year of running a business, I'll be reclined on a beach somewhere and somebody feeding me grapes and just having margaritas. No, in reality, it was my business went like this, and then it went like this, and then it went like this, and then, it's a roller coaster. Yeah. And so I think we need to differentiate between life is hard, but we can do hard things. That's one. Yeah. But also not to, hustle is different from acknowledging that life is hard. Life is going to be challenging, and I think it's okay to accept that. It doesn't mean you're praising hustle culture. It's just the reality that things are not always going to go according to plan. There will be challenges. It's going to be tough, but we have what it takes to overcome those challenges. And I think the difference between knowing I have to work hard and then hustle is when you begin to neglect your physical, emotional, emotional, spiritual needs. Then you know mental needs. Then you know, okay, I'm moving into hustle here because I'm neglecting myself. And this is like my biggest awakening that I've had recently. And God really spoke to me in this area because I was asking, I was like, okay, you know, the Bible says faith without works is dead, but then it also says like, you know, don't strive and like, you know, there's ease in the Holy Spirit. And I'm like, God, I feel like I'm doing all of these things. I'm working hard. I'm waking women up. This is, you know, the purpose that you've given me. But I feel exhausted and I feel drained. And I'm like, this is not what Jesus died for me to feel like this right now. Like, you know? And so I kept asking, and I was like, what is that balance? I think it's very difficult, but realizing that we are human beings, not human doings. And when you put your sense of being first, what does your soul need, right? Because you have mind, body, and soul. And it's like, what does your soul need? What is your soul asking for you? Have you taken care of your soul? Because at the end of the day, when you leave this world, all the work you do, all the emails you sent, you're like,
they're done,
it's pointless at the end of the day, right? So it's like knowing that you are a human being and you're having an experience. And as a part of that, there is work that needs to be done. But if you are neglecting your humanness, your needs, your physical, emotional, spiritual needs, all in the name of ticking a box, all in the name of success, then that's where it gets into hustle culture, I would say. And that's how I've learned to differentiate the two. But it's really hard. I fall back into it all the time, and then I have to like shake myself up again, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to ask you, because you were saying what had kind of driven you to like take on all the work and build your business was actually a scarcity mindset. So my first question is, when you started to say no, or you started to claw back a bit, how did that impact you and your business? Because that's a reality too. Is like saying no to something is saying yes to something, but then it works the other way around too. So if you're saying yes to yourself, yes to your rest, you're also saying no to perhaps that extra income. But then also how have you began to deal with that scarcity mindset? Because if we have a mindset of anything and we don't deal with it, it just shows itself another way in 6 months' time. So even when we change our rhythms and our patterns, it just kind of creeps back in. So like, what did it look like when you started to say no? And then how have you begun to deal with your that scarcity mindset that was driving you?
No, saying no is scary. It is so scary because you are literally, and it requires faith. It requires faith that, you know, you're going to say no to this opportunity right now in order to preserve your, you know, your needs and be able to be centered and make sure that you're still on track with your faith and everything like that and your love for God. And then actually knowing that, okay, I'm going to trust that another opportunity is also going to come for me at the right time where I have the right energy to do it. And I just had to lean into that abundance mindset. So the opposite of a scarcity mindset is an abundance mindset. And it's knowing that, you know, what is meant for you will not miss you. Be consistent, show up, but don't overdo it to the point where you neglect your needs in order to tick a box. So switching over to that abundance mindset and knowing that, you know, there's an abundance of opportunities. And that's realizing what I said earlier, like the work doesn't stop. The opportunities keep coming. You know? So sometimes you need to say no to some opportunities to create room for bigger and better opportunities. And, you know, I used to almost like fight God about this. Like, you know, it's just like, I keep praying, like, God, bless me, bless me, bless me. But he's like, where's the room? You've literally packed your schedule. You've literally said yes to all of these things. You're doing all of this work. And when you're doing it, you're making progress, right? So it looks like, I'm doing all these great things. But it's like, where's the room for God to come in and bless you? Where's the room for God to come in your normal life and do the extraordinary stuff, you know? And so I think it's very much like, not overpacking your schedule and just being able to say like, okay, this is my capacity and this is just what I'm going to say yes to now. And I'm going to trust that the next month there will be something else that's going to come. And so for me, it's just been a big practice of faith and knowing that if I prioritize the right things, the right opportunities are going to come to me.
And have you seen that? Has that been a reality then,
yes,
since that?
Definitely. And, you know, it's, again, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And it's like, I feel like when you seek first the kingdom, when you like prioritize your soul and what your heart needs and, you know, what's the most important things, then it's like there's an ease. And that's where the ease comes in, right? When you prioritize the right things, then there's ease in other areas of your life. But I found that when I prioritized my work over my mental, physical, and emotional well-being, that's when it felt like striving. That's when the burnout happened very quickly. But when you do it the other way around, it's just like then the divine and right opportunities come to you at the right time. And you don't have to feel like you're exhausting yourself just to make a living.
Yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Sinead, one of your co-hosts.
We know so many of you already watch these conversations, so if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, hit the button now. It really helps this important content to reach even more women around the world and ensures we can keep bringing these conversations to you.
Let's get back into this episode. I can really resonate with that because just about it being a faith decision.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think saying no to something is sort of like you're limiting yourself, but it's actually faith saying, I trust that God has something for me and I'm going to use my time to seek him rather than seeking the things.
Yes.
But it takes a way, I don't know how to explain, but holding yourself and saying, this can't continue.
Yeah.
Like Joyce Meyer always says, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And I remember I did have a quite high stressed job. And they always say, this job is stressful, this job is stressful. And I remember thinking, I need to look up what stress actually is. Is it a positive thing? Like you did, I had to research stress. And stress is related to a goal or an event. And I was like, okay, I can do this, but I also have to know that I have time blocks with God so I can take it with ease, take this goal with ease. And it just helped me. It melted away the anxiousness of the stress because there is good stress, right? But I think sometimes even as believers, we don't want to be stressed because God is so good. How could we be stressed? God is so faithful. Do you know what I mean? Like, how can you be stressed? You're a Christian. How can you burn out? You're a Christian. Isn't he the everlasting? But actually, if you don't put these things in place, because God tells us who he is and who he's not, I don't do this, I do this. So already if we took on that, seeking him first, putting first things first, I had to make changes. You know, so I really resonate with it. It's a faith decision as well. To say no sometimes, you know, and I really love that.
And just on that, there is your comfort zone, there's your stretch zone, and then there's your stress zone.
Right.
So there actually is healthy, like moving out of your comfort zone, because growth happens in the stretch zone. So you do want to be, you know, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations because everyone says, oh, I want to be resilient, I want to be resilient. Okay, but how do you actually become resilient? By going through challenging situations. You want to be wise, oh yes, strength, all of these great attributes and characteristics that we want, but we don't realize there's a price with that characteristics. Like you build wisdom, you build resilience by going through challenging situations. It doesn't just land on your doorstep in a lovely parcel and you just get to put that vest on. It's like, no, it requires work. It requires experiences that maybe you're going through the furnace, but you know what? It's actually building your character. And I always say challenges are here to grow you, not break you. And so in life, you know, you have to move from your comfort zone to your stretch zone. And being in your stretch zone is not God punishing you. It's character building, right? Because it's like any small thing is like, pray against attack from the devil. No, not every challenge in your life is coming from the devil. Like, you know, sometimes God needs to prune you. God needs to develop your character because in order to receive certain blessings, you need to be in the right mindset, in the right headspace, with the right heart, you know? And so it's okay to be a little bit stretched, but then you don't want to be in a complete stress zone where everything is breaking down around you and you as a human being can't even function in like the regular way that you should be able to. So I think a little bit of challenge, you know, just makes life a little bit spicy.
I think we struggle to live on that continuum between like soft life and hustle. I don't know if it's a millennial thing. I think you said this at the beginning, Sinead. I don't know if Gen Z seems to be like all about the soft life. I don't know. I'm not trying to call my sisters, my girls out. But then on the other end of the spectrum, most millennials like me are just so far on the hustle side. And I think knowing what is actually driving that is the key. So you could identify to her, actually it's because I had a scarcity mindset. I think for us, sometimes it's just cultural. We've been raised with like all the films of like people working in high rises, working amazing jobs, like the era of the girl boss. Like that's what we've lived through. And I get that. But then the other end of the spectrum, I don't like either. I'm like, if we actually believe God has given us a purpose and there is actually work to be done, whatever work that is, soft life is so far on the other side of like, I'm going to sit there and enjoy everything and sit down. My life's going to be great, but I'm not going to do anything. Is to me, an abdication of actually God, scripture talks about God having works prepared for us in advance to do. Right. So clearly there's things for us to do. But then the other side is like, no, I'm just going to keep doing this. You burning out. Yeah, but I'm doing it for a good cause, or I love what I do. Therefore, I will justify it. I think it's dangerous ground. And I've been there probably more times than on the soft life side. Made excuses. Yeah, but this is really important work. This is not just about me. Right. This is about others. People. Therefore, I'm going to justify my behaviour.
Yeah. As you're saying it, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are you saying me? Is this me?
No, I'm saying me.
Is me right now? You? Because everyone here works with people in some capacity. And I think that is the justifiable driver. This is somebody's life, right? This is, you know, I used to get DMs and letters, oh, help me, my divorce, my marriage, this thing has happened to me. And I would stay up at night praying and thinking about these awful stories. And I remember my parents just coming to my room saying, you can't go on like this. But I felt so just in what I was doing until it started to haunt me, until I couldn't sleep, until my physicality was sort of starting to show that you're taking on people's burdens. And it's just knowing that this is not on you. Yeah. But how do you transfer the load to God or to let go of that responsibility?
Because there is a real responsibility as well. Yeah. So especially when, for you two, are like leading your business and trying to get it off the ground. Yeah. You can't just be like, pass it on. I'm going to take next week off. Like that's just not the reality. And I think, and I would love to hear also, I can answer, but I'd love to hear from you both, like as women and as leaders, whether we're, the CEO or the founder, or we just love what we do and we're passionate about what we do. We obviously see there's great purpose behind that. So what do you kind of see your purpose being, Tiwa, in the middle of this whole conversation on burnout and doing what we love? Yeah. And getting carried away with it sometimes.
And I think in the beginning, I really thought my purpose was, to be a light to other people. My purpose was always tied to my ability to serve others. And they do say like purpose is being in the service of something bigger than yourself. But I think, we have to get to a point, I had to get to a point where I realized that my sole purpose right now is to be alive and to be fulfilled and to enjoy my gifts. And then I give my gifts to the world as a gift, right? It's not like I make sure like people don't feel entitled to me just because I can give advice and just because, I empower people and I literally help people change their lives doesn't mean that has to then come at a cost to my own life. And I think as women in leadership, we need to fill our cup up first and then give from your overflow because takers are going to take. People are always going to take. And so you have to realize that, okay, I have to fill my cup up first and then give from the overflow. So now I see my purpose as it's a gift I can give to the world and I can take it back anytime I want. And if a DM has to wait for 3 days while I'm centering myself and, making sure my heart is in a good place, then they have to wait and that is okay.
Yeah, my experience of that as well is just feeling, I guess, because I do think, for me, I'm like, okay, I am here to serve, but this is kind of where it comes in, is if we're not actually, though, topped up ourselves, if we're not caring for ourselves, if we're not growing and developing, well, what service am I to anyone else anyway? Exactly. So we kind of think we can just keep going, keep leading, keep giving out, whatever that is, whether that's like, it's through our work or through like a passion project that we have. But without keeping ourselves topped up, and just for me, I'm no good to anyone. If I'm not switched on, if I'm not growing, if I'm not sharp, if I'm not getting wisdom, if I'm not rested, and it quickly can become a downward spiral leading to burnout. Yeah. But I think so often we get so close to burnout and avoid it. So we think, I'm fine, I can do this. Whereas I know your experience is and has been, actually, no, I went too far and I've had to pull myself back.
Yes.
You know, you talked about the yo-yo before and
Yeah.
how that works. And so, especially with trying to do something new, 2020, you started a new business and you were just taking new steps in the right direction for you. How have you kind of ensured that you're not carrying that completely on your own?
Yeah.
How does that work? Because I think there's the one thing of asking for help.
Yeah.
There's the other thing, which I think you alluded to before, Sinead, of where does kind of giving some of that burden to God come in? Like really practically, when people talk about like putting some of your burden onto God, like he's going to carry it with you, what does that even mean? Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I had a big aha moment around this with the story of Mary and Martha and how when Jesus came to visit the two sisters, Martha was running around like preparing dinner, making sure everything was well. She was doing everything. And then Mary just sat at Jesus's feet. She was being, she was in a state of being, she was in the present moment, whereas Martha was running around making sure that everything was organized. And I think I definitely fell into a trap where I was so focused on doing the purpose that I forgot who gave me the purpose, right? And I realized God is not gonna unlock more blessings if the blessing is gonna take me away from him. So I had to go back to being in his presence as the number one purpose. Not, you know, how many lives
Doing
I'm
the
saving.
things.
Exactly, not doing the things, not the lives, not this, not that, but just being in his presence as the number one important thing, because in that presence is where you get the fuel. Is where you get the energy and the ideas and the creativity, because in your strength, you might have an idea, but you've created 100 steps to get to the end point. But when you are still in his presence, he can give you a shortcut to get the same result, but with less stress. But you won't know that unless you're connected to the spirit, right? Or in his presence, right? And so it's like, you have to be in a state of being to meditate, actually stay still. And I used to stress, I was like, why isn't God speaking to me? Like, God, speak to me. And it's like, sister girl, your diary is so packed. You are so busy from the moment you wake up, scrolling on your phone, checking emails, da-da-da-da-da. Where is the time and the space for God to speak to you in all of this? You know, it's like we're praying to hear something, but we never slow down enough to actually hear it. And so we have to remember the gifts of the Holy Spirit, right? Discipline, peace of mind, and all of these things. That comes from spending time with the Holy Spirit. Spending time with God in meditation is where your cup is filled, is where you get the discipline to be able to go out into the world and overcome these challenges. But I think we've got it all wrong, is we do it in the reverse.
We do it the wrong way
right?
around.
We do it the wrong way around. It's like we start striving at this goal and we try and fit God in. And then when it gets tough, it's like, oh, God, why aren't you helping me? But it's like, actually, no, you start with him first in the center, and then you're empowered to go out and do the work.
And it's so interesting that you're saying starting with God in the center. I mean, even if we copy God, he started with creating the world and resting.
Yes.
And I still struggle. I struggle to think, okay, what is rest, God? Because if God says, take a break, we need to also emulate him and copy that. And I went through a year of God telling me rest, and I didn't know what it meant. I tried so hard I kept on trying to strive to find out what it meant. And eventually, when a challenge arose and I didn't have the strength to fight, I finally understood why God had told me to rest. And why he had told me to rely on him more. And for me, the takeaway was, just because you're growing in Christ, it doesn't mean you rely on yourself. You rely on God even more. So I call that year the year of like, Lord, help me. Like, help me, Lord, like, help me. How else, are there ways that we can practically rest? Because I used to sleep, but I wasn't resting.
Right.
I used to take a day off, but then be looking at all these other people hustling and be thinking, tomorrow I'm going to come back with a bang. Like, because, so how can we practically rest in, the Christian sense, in the way that God has called us to rest?
I think that's such a great thing to talk about, because oftentimes people just think rest is just sleeping more. And then you sleep and you wake up and
So tired.
I'm
you're
still
still
not
tired,
refreshed.
you're
I'm
still
still
not
not ready.
refreshed, right?
Yeah.
Because there is physical rest, there's emotional rest, there is social rest, there is mental rest, and there is spiritual rest, right? And so you need to figure out what rest you need for where you are, for what you're experiencing, right? And going back to even God rested, you know, I think about it, I'm like, God could have created the whole universe in one day.
Yes.
He could have if he wanted to, but he didn't. He spaced it out into 6 days and then rested on the 7th. But like, I'm here trying to fit a whole year's worth of work, right? So it's just like, it doesn't make sense. So first of all, you need to look at the signs. So physical rest, when your body is weak and weary, you know, okay, now I need to sleep, I need to slow down. Exercising, doing like soft exercise, like yoga, going on walks, things like that. When you are in need of emotional rest, you often feel like your emotions are, like what I mentioned earlier, either very numb or very erratic and you're feeling overwhelmed. So in those cases, again, is slowing down to connect with your heart. What does your heart need? What needs are you not meeting? It's about knowing what are your values and are you prioritizing your values? You will feel emotionally drained when you're doing so much and not prioritizing what actually gives you life.
True. I can speak to that 100%.
Right.
I've been there so many times. And I think those extremes of numbness to like erratic feeling every feeling, when it's come down to it, quite often for me, it has been that really I've not been living to my values. And I've kind of thought it's everything else. I've tried to blame everything, everyone else, every situation. I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not doing this. And those factors may have played in. But when like push has come to shove and it's come down to it, I've been like, oh, I'm not actually doing the things that kind of restore the purpose part of me or the deepest part of me.
Totally. Your values are the foundation of your fulfillment. So if you, and that's why I've articulated my values into 4 pillars. So when I've overcompensated on one value, I know like, okay, right, there's something missing that I need to work on. Thinking about a day you felt fully alive, what were you doing, right? These are the things that'll help you understand what really you love, because productivity is not just ticking boxes. The real definition of productivity is spending time doing what matters to you. So if you're in a bunch of meetings, bunch of emails, but none of that matters, that's not productive, right? If we're being real, you know.
I think in this culture as well, productivity is being defined for us because other people's goals and other people's achievements are thrown, like slapped in the face, and you just think, oh, well, I've got to get that car because, you know, or I've got to get this dream or that sort of thing. And just taking back ownership of what is productive to you. My goodness, like, I think life would change for so many of us.
100%.
You know, and just being brave enough to say, or courageous enough to say, that's not productive to me. It takes, I think, courage to say, actually, that's not gonna work for me. I mean, how can we, as believers, take that productivity back and say, God has called me to be a human being. God has called me for his pleasure. How can we continue, because there's a balance, and it's a strive sometimes, but how do we stay in that rhythm and stay on that path?
We've got some audience dilemmas.
Okay.
That we want to bring to you. So our community have written in on this topic. Love to hear what you think about these. So the first one says this: I can feel my body telling me I need to take a break, but I know this needs to be more than just a holiday. That is what we've been speaking about. As someone with big goals, this feels really scary and I don't want to fall behind. I'm also nervous about the financial implications, but I would love to hear your thoughts and advice.
Let's talk about falling behind, right? When it's your life, your pace, your rules, how can you ever be behind? The concept of falling behind has to do with comparison, right? When you're comparing yourself to somebody else's journey, but your path is unique, right? There's how many, 7, 8 billion people on this planet? We can't all be at the same position at the same time, right? And even I was guilty of this. I was comparing my day 1 to somebody's year 10. That's not even a fair comparison, right? So I think, what is this notion of falling behind? You can never be behind. It's your own life. And I think, you know, you can't change the past and you don't know the future. All you have is this present moment. All you have is now. And that's what you need to focus on. You are exactly where you need to be right now. And if you feel like you're not doing enough, then okay, relook at your priorities and your goals and make change and get going. And I think we really need to release this idea that at a certain age, we need to have certain things and have tick certain boxes, because it is a trap. It's a lie that just keeps us trapped in life. And I think you experience the best freedom when you know it's your life, it's your pace and it's your rules, and you can go at the pace you want, and it's not a competition, right? So that's what I would say there. Yeah, it's not a competition. Don't let comparison steal your joy.
Yeah.
You know?
The greatest thing I ever heard was the perfect use of your time is time with God, because he is the perfect one. And like Tiwa said, how can you fall behind when you're spending time with a perfect person?
Yeah.
And all of us go after everything outside of him instead of letting him perfect you so that you can pursue what he's called you to pursue.
Kind of. It's about which way around things happen again.
Yes.
Like we were speaking about before.
What is the order? So even the big goals, who gave you those goals? Did you put them in yourself? Did you get them from him? Or is it from the people around you? You know, so when someone says big goals, I'm wondering, where is that goal coming from?
Yeah.
Where is that drive? Just those intrinsic questions that you ask, you know, who is fanning this flame is really important.
Yeah, I agree. And we've got another one.
Okay.
So they said this: I know the Sunday scaries are joked about a lot, but they are so real for me. 5 years ago, I became really ill after facing burnout. I ended up in hospital and I had to take months off work to get back to health. I don't want to leave my job, but I know I can't carry on as I am. Any thoughts on how I can speak with my boss about this?
Been there.
Have you?
Yeah, definitely.
What would you say then?
I think, okay, I was in complete denial at the time. I didn't even think panic attacks were real.
Wow.
And I remember I had a panic attack, and I remember running off the train, literally, and again, I'm dramatic, so sometimes I don't know if this is drama or this is real life. Is it a film? Who knows? So I took off my shoes. I was one stop before work, and I ran off the train and ran out of the station. And I just knew something is seriously wrong. I'm afraid to go one more stop to my job because I'm afraid of God knows how many hours I was going to work that day and that sort of thing. And
it's almost like your body was reacting
my body
before you could even catch
I
up.
had the exact same thing. My body was telling me when I was done with the situation
It's like the
before
fight,
me.
fight, flight, or freeze, and you literally
my body was
running.
like, take a right, girl, and run. And then when I came to myself, someone said, someone was asking, what are you afraid of? What have you been thinking about? What are you afraid of? And I think the Sunday scaries, it's fear. And the enemy puts fear in our lives as that discouragement, as that you're not gonna make it. You're not qualified yet as a lawyer. That was at the time the biggest fear. You'll never make it. And I think you have to go back to what is the fear that is causing you to continually be anxious, and you have to take a step of courage. Fear never leaves your life, but you can proceed in fear and in courage and say to your boss, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. I used to practice in the mirror saying no, saying I need a holiday. And sometimes I'd put my annual leave in and run away from the computer because I was scared. But it was courage, it's steps of courage that you must take. Otherwise you won't be here to live out the purpose that God has for you. You won't be alive to see it. And that's when it faced me that you keep on running off trains, so you ain't gonna be here too long.
Sometimes we just don't take those signs seriously enough, do we? And I think in this situation, I'd love to hear what you think to it. It's kind of like something's got to give, so what's it gonna be? And it comes down to
I think it's important to understand that needing to rest is not a personal failure.
Yes.
Because if you see rest as a failure, asking for help or asking for time off, you're going to internalize that as you being a failure. Rest is a human need. You wouldn't freak out about your boss to ask to eat lunch because you know you need food, right? It's a human need. And I think the way we have painted rest as a society to be such a negative thing, to be only for weak people, and we glorify overworking and strength in that way. It's like, no, rest is an essential part of being a human being. And you deserve that. You are worthy of rest. Rest is not a reward you get for working hard. Exactly. Whether you work hard or not, you are worthy of rest. Full stop. And so I think it's really important to understand your worth from that perspective and know that your worth is not tied to your productivity levels. So that even on days when you are not productive, you are still worthy and deserving of rest. So I would go and approach my boss with confidence and to say, listen, and I think a really good way to do this is to say, look, I want to prioritize quality over quantity. I am getting to a point at work where my quality is dropping because I have not been given the space that I need to nurture myself, to make sure I'm meeting my needs, my basic human necessities, right? Because we're not asking for $1 million here. We're literally asking to stop working at a reasonable time, right? So it's like, I want to prioritize quality. And you can even say to your boss, I know you want quality over quantity too. I know you want the best work for me. Yes. It's not a battle. We're on the same page here. You want the best and I want to give you the best. And these are my terms and conditions to be able to give you the best version of myself. So if you want work to be done at a certain level, this is what I need. And it's not either or, it's a win-win situation for everyone. And I think helping them see it in that way can be a really powerful way to get the rest that you need. But please do not, victimize, make yourself feel bad about it, or, it's not a bad thing. It's not a personal failure. It's a human need.
Yes. Yeah. And how can we as the Magnify community support you too? Or tell us a bit about your work. I know you've got your book, so tell us where can we find it?
Yeah, so, I was actually a really insecure teenager, and I started when I came across the world of personal growth and learning to love and believe in myself and wake up to who God says I am and really know my worth. It changed my life. It woke me up to so much greatness, and it allowed me to live with such confidence and just love and joy. And when I experienced that, I was like, I want this for every single person out there, because that is what we deserve. We deserve to love ourselves. We deserve to feel good in life, to have a mind that loves us and supports us. And so I created this organization, this brand, this movement called Confident and Killing It. And it is all about, waking you up to your worth, to that inner greatness, knowing that everything you need to win in life is already inside of you. You already naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. We just need to wake up to it. And so as a confidence coach, as a life coach specializing in positive psychology, I mix my faith with the science as well, with the practical tips, because it's not just you go girl motivation, right? It's actually going to change your life, which is so important to me. And so I bring practical ways to make confidence accessible to everybody, to be able to master your mind and to be able to take action, understand your emotions, and use them to catapult yourself into, what God has called you to unlock your potential. So my book is called Confident and Killing It. Everything is called Confident and Killing It, to be fair. So I have a book, I have a podcast, and I also do one-to-one coaching as well with women who have brilliant ideas, but fear is holding them back. And I just work with them to help them release that fear and believe in themselves. And it's been such a beautiful journey. I'm so grateful for how much it's grown. And you can catch me online just sharing good vibes and positivity.
That is incredible.
Thank you.
Tiwa, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you for having
It's been
me.
challenging, enlightening, everything in one go.
Thank
you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's conversation. We hope you gleaned as much from it as we did.
If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with all of our episodes at the Magnify Conversations.
And if you have a story to share and would like to be featured on the conversations, get in touch with Team Magnify through magnifycollective.com and head over to our contact form.
We'll see you next Monday for another installment from all of our team and crew. See you next week.